Okay. Again, thanks everyone for joining today. We've started the recording. We will stop the recording before the Q&A session. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today. Let me briefly guide you through the agenda. Can you see the second slide already? All right. So we will have a short introduction on the FeMa-Meter tool. We'll tell you a little bit about our pilot approach. Then we'll go through the tool. We'll do the demonstration, and then towards the end we'll tell you about the next steps. You'll hear from Rachel and Shilpi about the tool, why we developed it. We've done this exercise together with supervisors, and we do appreciate your willingness to utilize the tool and to work with us on the tool. I do see that some people I can't admit, or there might be problem on their side, but I hope they'll be able to join us soon. Maybe just a few words about ourselves. So my colleague Laura and I, we come from Access to Insurance Initiative. So we are an implementation partner of International Association of Insurance Supervisors. So basically, they're the standard setting body for the insurance sector globally, and we help them implement these standards among supervisors in different countries, mostly in EMD countries. We do this. We use different formats. So we like to say that we work on knowledge generation, on capacity building, and on advocacy and outreach. If you're not familiar with our work, you can visit our website, a2ii.org. Again, we have different formats that we work with. We do many multi-stakeholder public dialogues. We do surveys. We do desk and on-site research. We have a lot of training programs. Most of them are only exclusively for supervisors. We offer scholarships for different leadership programs that are out there. We do case study developments, and then working on gender is just one aspect of our work that we do with supervisors in order to close the gender gap when it comes to the insurance. So I'll stop here, and then I will give the floor to Rachel to continue.
Great. Thank you, Milena. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So Laura, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, just want to give you a little bit of context before we actually walk you through the tools. So what we're really trying to do here is, we know that the contexts, economic, social, financial for women are quite different than men. And we know, and research tells us and anecdotal stories tell us that though well-intended, a gender-neutral approach tends to leave women behind. What we really are trying to do here is to start to develop a universal data set to more deeply understand those barriers in terms of, access and uptake of insurance, as well as organizational gender diversity. We don't have a representative data set yet. The next slide. So basically what our plan is we want to really continue to drive inclusive insurance and really apply a gender lens to make insurance even more meaningful for those who are on or underinsured, particularly women. And so again, our approach is to really get a uniform understanding of gender within insurance, and we want to provide a mechanism for insurers as well as regulators and supervisors to collect and analyze sex disaggregated data across some key indicators. So what we've done is we have developed a FeMa-Meter toolkit. If we can go to the next slide, please. And we're going to go through this in a bit more detail when we actually go through the tool. But basically, what we wanted to do is kind of start with some very key indicators and disaggregate them by gender. So we've got a number of indicators on the market side, as well as indicators on the governance side. And again, we really looked to select indicators that we felt we could uniformly measure across multiple jurisdictions. So if we move to the next slide, just to give you, and this will become even clearer when we go through the demonstration of the tools, but basically the key features of the toolkit, one is we developed it in Excel because everyone has access to Excel and we wanted to make sure it was going to be accessible. It's quite simple. It's just focusing on the most common indicators, the ones that you probably already collect data on. It won't take very long to actually complete. Once you've collected the data, it's actually quite simple to fill in the tool. And what we've done is we've then created kind of a master tool where regulators and supervisors, upon collecting data from insurers, can then amalgamate all of the results together to kind of get a broad perspective across their jurisdiction. But we also wanted to make sure that, for all of you, for insurers, that you're getting some immediate outputs as well. And you'll see as Shilpi walks you through the tool that once you complete it, there's an output, there's indicators that will pop up that will give you an idea of kind of where you are relative to those key indicators. So we wanted to make sure that insurers get immediate outputs and regulators and supervisors get a broad view of their jurisdiction. So what we really want to make sure of is that by the end of this particular session, it's very clear what data you're collecting. You're familiar with how the tool works. And again, it's Excel, so it's quite simple. And we also want you to try to open the files on your machine to make sure that everything is working okay for you. So as Milena mentioned, this is a pilot. And so, while we have selected indicators that we expect will carry through to the wider launch, we do want to, start with a smaller group. And really the objectives of the pilot on the next slide are we want to just ensure that the tool is functioning as intended, that it is in fact easy to use. We really want to hear from all of you. How much time did it take you to complete it? Were there any challenges in terms of either, using the tool or getting the data? So things along those lines. Our outcomes, again, we want to ensure that there are key learnings for everyone involved: insurers, regulators, supervisors, policymakers. And then we will, come to you and ask you for feedback because you may have some thoughts on some ways to refine the tool, or you may have some perspective to share with us on how we communicate the purpose of the tool. So we're going to get all of your feedback, and then we will take that into account as we develop a strategy for a wider launch. And our hope is that ultimately, this tool is something that becomes, part of a regulator and supervisor toolkit to collect data that gives us a really good view from a gender perspective. So just to give you an idea of, obviously, as I've mentioned, there's a few key players here. There's regulators and supervisors, there's insurers, and then there's A2II. So basically the flow, we're already in it. So we've already met with regulators and supervisors. We've asked them to connect to insurers in their markets and to continue to work with them to help them gather the data. Then the insurers, all of you, will complete your templates and send them back to the regulators and supervisors. And then regulators will just do a quick quality check and compile all of the files into their own templates and share that with A2II. And then A2II will review all the files, collect feedback, and make necessary changes in the toolkit. So if we could continue on with this slide. Thank you, Laura. So that's the flow that I've just described all laid out. And so now, before I hand it over to Shilpi for an actual demonstration of the tool, we, as Milena mentioned, we have a few other poll questions that we're curious to understand. And the first one is, we really want to get a sense already, does your organization collect and analyze key business metrics by sex? So Laura has, thank you, Laura, for posting that in the chat. It just helps us to get an understanding of where you are. So just want to get a clear view. Do you already collect this data? If so, do you look at it with a gender lens? And with that, I am going to hand it over to Shilpi.
Thanks. You can hear me okay? Cool.
We can hear you.
So, thanks. I'll share my screen and tell me if you can see it. Screen. Can you see my screen? Okay, so there is. So we'll start with the first template for insurers, which is on access and usage. This template collects the data on market indicators and some of the indicators that we saw on the list, and we'll walk through it. Assuming you all have access to this file, which is named FeMa-Meter Access and Usage 1A for insurer. And if you have it, please save it on your desktops. And when you save it, and then you open this file, this is how it will look like when you open it, right? So the first thing to note here is that there's macros running in this Excel file, and you will see this warning, enable content. Please go ahead and enable the content. And if you're facing any challenges, you may want to reach out to the IT team in your organization, because sometimes IT policies can be very strict and they may not allow macros on your machines. So if you're facing any issues, let your IT team know and they can help you out. This is, so I'll start, there are two tabs and I'll explain the two tabs. The first tab here, it says P&L. In your version, it may say insurer. It's just a name that is there and it'll change when you enter your name. So basically, so this is the input tab. This is where you have to enter your data. And this is the output tab. When you enter your data, there are some simple calculations for you to refer to for your immediate consumption. So starting with this, go on the top, you see the first place is for, the gray cell is for insurer name. And that's where you enter your very short name in not more than 3 to 5 letters. Just keep it simple. So if the name of the insurance company is, say, Prudential Life, I would rather just say PLI or something like that, which is like Prudential Life Insurance, and just click on enter. And you will see actually the tab name has changed to PLI. So it's for everybody's quick reference, what the short code is and whose name is it. When you send this file to the regulators, they will have an immediate understanding of whose name it might be. And we are looking for data from and to. So these are business indicators and they are typically measured over a period or a duration. And our thought is that we collect at least a 12-month period data. And what you can do is you can refer to the last submitted data for the annual reporting to the regulators, because I think in most jurisdictions, there is by the end of every year, the insurers are required to report their data to regulators. So you may want to just use those numbers and disaggregate by sex for the ease of getting the data, because data collection could be a tricky exercise within the organization. So if that's what you have agreed with the regulators in your jurisdiction, please go ahead. So I would leave it to between you and the regulators, but that was our recommendation, that you use last submitted data. Hopefully it'll be easier. But usually we take a 12-month period. So let's say we are taking 1st January and to 31st December. So if there are different dates, please feel free to change those dates. And then there are some simple instructions here. We are looking at, when we talk about business, there are different kinds of businesses, there are different portfolios. Some insurance companies have health, life, business insurance, climate insurance, etc. So I'll walk you through that too as well. And there are 7 indicators that we are collecting against each portfolio. And we are collecting sex information on 3 sexes, or rather 4 basically. So female, male, and some jurisdictions identify other as a 3rd sex. So if your jurisdiction does that, please do enter that information. And if there is no sex data available, then we use unknown. So if you don't have sex data for that specific indicator or part of that portfolio, you can enter those details in the unknown column. And strong recommendation, please go through the tool first, see what data is required and collect that. And then once you have all the data, then you start putting that in the tool. That's so that everything is in one go and you are done with the tool. It should not, once you have the data, as Rachel mentioned, it will not take more than 30 minutes to fill this tool. Another is you just please enter only whole numbers. So if there's any number, just write that number in as a number, no points, no K or million or anything, just keep it very simple, just enter the whole numbers in this. And if there are if there are money amounts or monetary values, just put your numbers in local currency. We will understand it. We will know it from the regulators what currency is being used, but we do not want dollar amounts or anything. So just use what is the norm in your organization and your jurisdiction. And there is also a total column that will add. So we'll start with the accident and health insurance portfolio. And under this, we are talking about any programs, policies, products that you classify under health and accident insurance. So if there are definitions that are provided by the regulators, you please use that definition, or internally, if you follow some norms around whatever products and policies classify as accident and health insurance. And some examples here are indemnity, so Mediclaim or Medicare kind of product, or hospital cash kind of product, disability or personal accident. So these are just examples. So use your judgment here. Whatever you classify under accident and health will come under this. And then the 7 indicators here are number of policy holders. And we have provided definition just below each indicator, just to clarify what it means. These should be hopefully very standard definitions, but if there are any questions which you want to ask, please ask after this demonstration, or even after this training, you can send the questions to us and we will be happy to answer. So number of policy holder is basically the count of people who have active or enforced policies at the end of the reporting period, and then disaggregated by sex. And then we are talking about, so this will most likely be individual customers who have, because if there are group policy with a microfinance institution, you don't need to count it there because the sex will not be known, right? When we are talking about policyholder, the policyholder will be the institution. However, when you're talking about the lives insured, that's when you can put all the data of all individuals, their spouses, if there's a family policy, and children. Collectively, those are the number of lives that are being insured by the organization. So these are the people, that's where you can mention their the numbers and disaggregated by sex. So once you fill in, you will know how many women are being covered, how many men are being covered, how many people of the other sex are covered. And if you don't have information on a certain number of people, you can add it there. And so you see these are these black boxes, like black boundaries, and that's where you have to enter the number. And the total will be calculated immediately, so that once you have the data with you, you can just tally it with the total here, whether the numbers are being entered correctly or not. And then number of claims received, hopefully these are self-explanatory. Number of claims paid by each sex for the insured person, amount of claims paid by sex, and number of claims rejected by sex. So these are 7 standard indicators which get repeated for all other portfolios. You enter those numbers here, and that's all you need to do against those. So this was, say, for example, the first portfolio, which is accident and health insurance. Then the second portfolio with the same indicators is for life and savings linked insurance. So this is where most life insurance companies will have some kind of life insurance, which is term life or credit life, or you can call it funeral, endowment, money back, unit linked, whatever those policies may be, which covers the life of a person, or if there's some saving element included in those products, that's where this is the place for you to enter the information for those policies. The indicators remain the same over here. The third portfolio that we are looking at is small business insurance. So if you're covering SMEs or MSMEs, the medium and small enterprises or small enterprises, this is where you can enter this information.